Hello and welcome into Loftside Bantr. On today's show, we're going to visit some NFL news, including Kraft versus Belichick. We're going to look at the absorbent amount of rookies that hadn't signed their deals. They're starting to fall into place now, but pretty much all but 2 second-rounders hadn't signed their rookie deals, and then we still have a first-round draft pick for the Cincinnati Bengals that hasn't signed his, what the process would be if they don't sign their deal. We'll take a look at the wonderful world of poker, professional poker, as it seems like we're getting a lot more players back into the main event of, or the World Series of Poker, I should say, that took place this past week. And then we'll go over the MLB All-Star Game swing-off that happened that actually made the game somewhat exciting, which I wish there were different players doing it, but we'll dissect all of that within the show. So NFL, poker, and MLB this week. Quite a combination if you ask me, but we'll get it over to the countdown and over to the show.
We are on in 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2.
Hello and welcome into Loftside Bantr. Today's show, we cover some NFL news, we cover some Major League Baseball, recap of the All-Star Game, we take a look at professional poker and see if it's back. We had a huge main event happen over the last week or so. And then we'll go into some miscellaneous sports news, and I'm sure there'll be some show news on that as well. One of the big things that's happened over the last week or so has been kind of a resurgence in professional poker and poker tournaments. It was something that was big when I was younger. I remember sitting at my kitchen table, like learning how to play while it was on in the background. But what's really weird is that it's making a resurgence right now. I bring this to everybody's attention because one of my many flaws is I like to gamble on sports. And again, it's not to the point where I'm losing rent, mortgage, car payment, anything like that. But according to a report, the global casino gaming market is projected to grow by $43 billion between 2024 and 2028. So obviously we're right at still kind of the middle of that 4-year span. And we know what it's all from. It's from social media marketing and smartphone engagement and being able to be that much more accessible and allowed places. And I'm not saying by any means that it's a bad thing. And the reason why I say that, again, is because I partake in this. So I wouldn't ever consider it a bad thing. It can be a bad thing for people because obviously it can become very addicting. It can become, if I can win 1, I can win 10. If I can win 10, I can win 20. Trust me, it's all the stuff that goes in my mind. That is the mentality that I have when I win, and I go, hey, I can continue to do this. I've had great success. I've had lows. But, I mean, I think it's pretty much evened out in the end, for me. Even just a few years ago, casinos were painted in a pretty bleak picture. New York, I have some reports here from upstate New York, was already struggling to maintain profitability and increase competition from downstate casinos. It was not looking great. And then as things start to get online, the internet changes everything. I mean, it's changed what I do based upon putting out a podcast, right? But, I mean, with the accessibility and everything else, it was really kind of a resurgence in that. I was in Florida when online sports gambling came along, and they ended up putting a pause, or at least the one I was using put a pause on it at one point, and I thought that was weird that they were going to lose out on all this money. And then kind of the same thing has happened here in Massachusetts, where they have a casino built here, they have a few now, and they started to do online stuff. Now, for sports gambling, you have to be on property to do it. They have their own sports book. They have everything else like that. I bring all this up and tell you all this because the World Series of Poker just had their event, and they had the 3rd largest entrance ever in the history of the World Series of Poker. I mean, the original World Series of Poker main event was in 1970, and there was 7 7 people who entered. In 2003, Chris Moneymaker went out and won $2.5 million, which was then on ESPN for one of the first times, I think, or at least the first time that I recognized it. And then the jump happened. So it was 839 participants in 2003, the year that Chris Moneymaker won. The very next year, 2,500 people entered. I think it was, 2,576 people entered, and the prize money doubled to $5 million. Greg Raymer, or Fossilman, he used to wear, I don't know if anybody remembers the sunglasses that had reflective images on them, but he had like dinosaur eyes on them. I can remember that vividly. After that, another boom. So 5,000, over 5,600 people entered after that. Then after that, in 2006, 8,773. Then you start to see the waning a little bit. 6,300, 6,800, 6,400, 7,300. Then it kind of hovers around that 67, 72, 64. Like it all kind of varies different year to year. They had an online tournament that was only 1,300 people in 2020. Surprise, surprise. And then 6,600, 8,600. Then in 2023, over 10,000 people entered. And the prize money has gotten up to $12.1 million. Then a few other people in 2024, 10,112. And then this year was 9,700. So that's kind of where the booms have kind of gone. And again, you can kind of see at each different year. All right, so in 2003, Chris Moneymaker, kind of an amateur, comes in, 800 people, wins $2.5 million. Boom, 2,500 people the next year. Then doubles again to 5,600. All right, cool. Kind of see all these different kind of boom years. And then as we've kind of gotten into the 2020s, 2021, 2022, stuff like that, when things have become more accessible. This all ties back to the internet. And again, I have no problem with this. I understand and recognize where I need to be and what I need to do to be able to live the lifestyle that I do, to bet on sports, to bet on games and everything else like that. I take my winnings. The problem I have is I can't take my winnings. I always have to get more. And then I end up going back to zero. But again, if I'm starting at whatever reasonable number I have, and not everybody has that ability. And I understand that. Trust me, I've lived a long time to understand that not everybody has that ability. So it's up to you out there, if this is what you're going to do, to be able to talk to the people you need to, and whatever. And again, I'm not here to tell you to do that. It's up to you. I know where I need to be. Does this mean this becomes a regular on TV thing? Back when it was the boom, the original boom, in the early 2000s, it was everywhere. There was Fox Sports carried it. ESPN carried it. There was everywhere carried the World Series of Poker, or at least events. Started to meet personalities that you could see, some of them were just, this is the lifestyle they've lived. They've been lucky enough to do all this different stuff. They've made a living off of it. It's not for everybody. So understand that. It's not for everybody. Some people can't rationalize that, hey, they've lost this money and this is what it is. I've had people or known people that have gone to casinos, lost money at something, and go, okay, how do I get that money back? Well, you got to put more money into it. That's just the way it kind of goes. Some people can go sit at a slot machine for hours on end. I can't do that. The last I knew, it was a $10,000 buy-in for the World Series of Poker. There are other ones that are $500 buy-ins, $1,000 buy-ins. There's 100 tournaments during the process of the poker, World Series of Poker. There's 100 different tournaments. They get really nice bracelets, too. I mean, you can't overlook that fact, right? ESPN did a 30 for 30 called All In, Sparking the Poker Boom. And it has to do with Chris Moneymaker and kind of looks at the 2003 World Series of Poker, shed some light on that. It's an interesting just dynamic of the people that watch it, the boom of it, the people that are participating in it, and everything else like that now, because it was such a taboo. It's still taboo in a lot of different places. And, I understand why. It has its downfalls, just like everything else, but if you control what you do and you understand what you're going into and everything else like that, it is what it is. It's not a get rich quick scheme. Don't think that it is. But you're having over 10,000 people enter the main event every year. And these are people that I hope understand what they're putting out there and what they're, there are gambling hotlines. They put all that stuff out there. They pay money for all that different stuff each year because there is help for people. But it is interesting to see how the human mind works in the sense that how you're bluffing, how you're doing all those different things. So it is an interesting look at things. So just understand it is not there for you to, hey, I'm going to get rich really quickly. That's not, if you're going into that, you've already lost. So, again, the third most this year. The winner for this year was Michael the Grinder Mizrachi, and he has 8 World Series of poker bracelets, so he knows how to win. This isn't somebody out of nowhere. This is somebody that has been on the circuit for a while and finally got the World Series main event winning bracelet comparative to the other 8 that he has. Or I should say the other 7 that he has, because this was his 8th one winning the main event this past year. It was a $10 million prize. Interesting. Something, if you haven't witnessed it or haven't watched it or haven't, really kind of dived into it, it's an interesting kind of concept, an interesting boom that has happened since the beginning of the 2000s. Quick little baseball news. Obviously, the All-Star game happened at the beginning of the week, and we're already back to the second half of baseball. We've had a few games played. Wouldn't you know it, after 10-game winning streak, the Red Sox have gone into Chicago to play the Cubs and have lost 2 straight. So, again, it sucks that they've been so good right at the All-Star break over the last 3 years. I said this in the last episode. They were like 8-2, 9-1, 9-3, whatever it was, going into an All-Star break, where each year they go, we think they're turning the corner. And I have spoken down about the Red Sox all year, and I still don't believe that they've turned a corner quite yet. It's tough because we can see that they can win. We see that they can do these things. They lost 6-0 last night. And then the night before, I'm waiting for my computer, they lost 4-1. So no offense again. They have a game today, obviously, at Wrigley, where it's Garrett Crochet. So maybe some luck turns around. Maybe they can salvage a game out of this series and kind of get back to that way. But again, 10 wins in a row. All-Star break, lost 2. So they're going to be right there, 500. Right now they're 6 games above 500. I'm not quite sure that they have it yet. They have to make moves at the deadline. I know they're looking for starting pitching. I know they're looking for some hitting. Their offense is the thing that struggled. Obviously, injuries to the starting pitching has been a problem, so that's why they're probably going to address that first. One of the really cool things we got right after the All-Star break was Ronald Acuna Jr. from the Atlanta Braves, who had a triple and a double on Friday night. But nobody's talking about that. With 1 out and 2 on, Cody Bellinger of the Yankees hit a fly ball to right field. Acuna ran over to the corner, made what looked like a casual catch, then stunned Yankees' Jorbid Vivas. Hope I said that right. And everybody else in the park by turning and firing a perfect flat-footed throw that reached their third baseman, where he tagged Vivas out, who was tagging up to go from second to third. It was, I highly recommend going and seeing this clip. I really do. It's the most casual, great play I've seen in a very, very long time.
This will already put Strider over 50 pitches here. High and deep to right. Over toward the line. Acuna's got it. Tagging from second is Bibas. Whoa! They got him! Are you kidding me? A frozen rope. Bibas cannot believe it.
stunned a lot of people in the ballpark, as you can hear the crowd and everything else like that. I'm going to try to put in the clip prior to this so you can hear the call. I want to give credit to Major League Baseball and the Braves and Yankees. I'm not sure which one it will be, so I want to give credit to everybody for the call on that play. They're saying it's the throw of the year. They're saying it's the defensive play of the year. It's all this different thing. And again, it's not an amazing diving catch. He just casually drifts over to the corner, catches it, and just unleashes the perfect throw to be able to tag him just before he got there. And I don't know if Vivas knew up until like the last second when the third base coach is probably panicking. Like, please just hurry up. But I do want to go back and revisit the All-Star game. So the Major League All-Star game had something new to it that was very exciting for the most part. There's some things I think they need to tweak, but I went into this All-Star game asking if they were even relevant anymore. I mean, not a lot of people really watch the Pro Bowl anymore. MLB All-Star Game seemed to be kind of in that category where there was just, okay, it was there. I mean, they tried to make it count at one point in time where they said whoever wins the All-Star Game gets home field advantage in the World Series. I believe that's gone by the wayside. We had Kyle Raleigh win the home run derby, big dumper. So that was an exciting thing. It's always been exciting for him this year because he's doing things that catchers don't normally do, at least in today's day and age. And so they do all of these different things, and the game still comes down to a tie at the end. And if some of you remember, in 2002, the All-Star game ended in a tie because Bud Selig who was the commissioner at the time, did not want to use any more players or start using positional players to pitch. So he had to call the game, which was probably one of the more down times for baseball. Like, that just can't happen. You can't have a game, even if it's an exhibition game and in a tie. And again, the reasoning behind it is sound. Completely understand that. So this year, it was 6-6, and they went to this new thing called the swing off, which was really cool. It was something that, again, there's going to be some tweaks to it. So the swing off is a tiebreaker rule implemented for the first time this year for the All-Star game. Instead of continuing with traditional extra innings in the game, is decided through a home run derby style competition. Each team selects 3 players who will take 3 swings each, and the team with the most home runs wins the game. Pretty simple. Now, the 3 that each team picked is going to be where the MLB needs to fix this, because we had, for the AL, it was Brent Rooker, Jonathan Arenado, and Randy Arozarena. Again, I hope I pronounced that right. But those are not typically household names for, unless you're a fan of the Athletics, which is where Rooker plays, or the Mariners or the Rays, where the other 2 respectively play. Unless you're fans of those teams, you don't know pretty much who these guys are. I thought one of them played for the Tigers at one point, so I mean, I'll admit that right now. On the NL side, it was Kyle Stowers, Kyle Schwarber, and Pete Alonso. So a little bit more known names, I suppose. Kyle Stowers, probably, if you're not a fan of the Marlins, you may not know who he is. I mean, he has 27 career home runs, so why would he be in a swing-off when you need to hit home runs? Here's why we didn't get the Shohei Ohtani, Aaron Judge, anybody like that, is because they were told once they were taken out of the game they could leave to go do prior engagements. Now, this is the All-Star break. This is when players get a little bit of rest throughout the long season. So, I understand them being told that they can do that, and that's fine. I think you need to, in the future, tell who your swing off people will be. So which 3 at the beginning of a game, you need to announce which 3 they'll be. I don't know if they're necessarily going to do that because, as mentioned before, they deserve some time off too. You know, having them do this this way is fine. Because it's a step in the right direction for Major League Baseball. Give some sort of excitement for the All-Star Game. Get people to be interested again and everything else. I had made an episode prior to this saying that, like I've said a couple of times now, it's been irrelevant for a while. And this doesn't necessarily make it the most relevant All-Star Game out of everything. I still think hockey did a great job with the Four Nations, and I think they should continue to do that, maybe even expand that. The problem is you're going to have to take longer times off for hockey and stuff like that for this tournament. We're getting off track. The thing that we need to understand is this gives the excitement of a tie. Doesn't necessarily mean it's going to happen every year, because it doesn't typically happen every year. So maybe do something different with, and I think they should explore doing this instead of extra innings. That's my off the wall take here, is I think they should probably explore this than doing an actual extra inning game. Now, how do you justify that in a box score? How do you justify that? Who knows? I don't think that's something that they're ever going to do, but I think it was exciting enough that people understood that, hey, this could be something. I've heard a whole bunch of different new rule things that would be kind of cool, but would never happen in the Major League Baseball. And then maybe that's another show, but it got something going. It got people onto, to stay up late, watch it to the end and everything else. But the ratings for this All-Star Game were 7.2 million viewers, which is down quite a bit. But it was even down from last year, which was 7.4. But it still surpasses the NBA and NFL All-Star events, which average about 4.5 million viewers. It got people to watch it the next day. It got people excited about this kind of thing. And again, it's not something that's going to happen every year. So if you're getting people to watch just to hope for that, it's going to be probably some disappointing figures. But, I mean, you may get a boost from this. The last time an MLB All-Star Game did over a 10 rating and was an 11 rating in 2001. And that was about 16 million viewers. So you're down to 7.4 million viewers. You have lost 9 million viewers. No matter how you split it, somewhere in there, you've lost 9 million viewers. Roundabout 9 million viewers. I give them all the credit in the world to come up with new stuff. I understand the rule changes. I understand all of those things. And as I've said before, I don't agree with them all. I understand the purpose of them. But the last time they were even over 10 million viewers was 10.9 in 2015. So it is not something people are striving to watch anymore. And Fox took over the All-Star Game completely in 2001. So the last time they had really good numbers, and I can't say they didn't have really good numbers. I mean, 14 million viewers in 2002 to 10.9 million in 2015. After that, it's dropped below. It's been over 9 one more time in 2017. Every time else has been a little over 8 or a little over 7. So again, it is a dying thing. But they've done some things to at least bring some excitement back and everything else like that. So I commend baseball for doing that. I don't think baseball will ever get back to a point of being close to football or close to basketball. I just don't see it. I've found myself to be choosing the other ones. I have found myself to watch a handful. I'd say let's go 2 handfuls of baseball games a year before playoff baseball. Once playoff baseball comes on, then I'm watching almost every single game or every game that I possibly can. I find myself looking at regular season games more for football, definitely football, basketball, hockey. I watch more regular season games. So there's still some work to do, but the thought process is there to get people to not only still try to watch the All-Star Game and baseball games, but then to revisit it. Like, people went back and watched the swing off because, I mean, it was short. 3 swings. You have 3 swings to make something happen. 3 swings to make something happen. So that's exciting. There's no room for error. That's the thing that, baseball fans have kind of wanted to see. No room for error. That's playoff baseball. You have no room for error. Every swing means something. Every pitch means something. You put a little bit more effort, a little bit more oomph in a pitch or a swing. That's what makes it exciting. Revisiting some Major League Baseball draft news. Eli Willits, the number 1 overall pick to the Washington Nationals. He signs with an $8.2 million bonus. If you remember from the previous episode, a number 1 overall pick had a cap of a little over $11 million. So, as mentioned, Major League Baseball draft doesn't do things as normally as some of the other drafts where you're picking the best available player and everything else. You're looking for somebody that, A, is good to be in that position, and B, that can fit within your money constraints by your owner or whatever the case may be. So they saved about $3 million on the number 1 overall pick. They got to go out, scout the guy that they thought that was going to be there at the price that they wanted, and that's who they ended up with. And he signed for, again, they saved some money for themselves. Some basketball news. The WNBA All-Star Game was last night, at least at this recording, and Team Collier won by 20 points, 151 to 131 over Team Clark. Now, Caitlin Clark did not play in the game because of injury, but they all did something at the beginning of warm-ups and stuff like that that we need to look at. And I'm going to be probably a little unpopular for this, but they all wore shirts that said, "Pay us what you owe us," which is a statement that they're not making as much, I would assume, as NBA players, as male players, and stuff like that. I'm all for women's sports to get paid what they deserve. I am all for them being paid as much as men. But, and this is, I realize nothing before the word but counts, so just bear with me. The league has not been profitable in its 28-year history at all. League revenue went up in 2023 to 180 to about $200 million. So 180 million to $200 million, which was up from 60 million in 2019. We all know that it's a influx of fans and everything else for Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese and all the newer players that have come into the league over the last couple of years. We can appreciate that all of them were in unison. They all wore the shirt. They all decided to make that statement. Great. But you can't pay more on something that you're losing money on. The WNBA was projected to lose $50 million in 2024. The current $60 million annual deal may rise to $240 million post 2025. Now, the argument is that they've over tripled the amount of revenue that the league brings in. From 2019 to 2023, they've tripled the amount of money in which tripled the amount of revenue the league makes. The revenue is derived from several key sources: media rights, ticket sales, sponsorships, and merchandise. Those are the main things that bring in money for the leagues. The current media rights contract is valued at $60 million annually. It is set to expire in 2025, so at the end of this year, with projections suggesting the next deal could quadruple to $240 million. So now you're going to have well above what the amount of money is. The growth of women's sports is coming. And for those of you that have listened since the beginning with Marina and everything else like that, I have said that. It's there. It's going to eventually explode. Ticket sales have exploded for the quote-unquote Caitlin Clark effect. The Fever have seen, the Indiana Fever have seen, I'm sure the unprecedented demand for tickets in 2024, and I'm sure in 2025. Now, she's been injured as of recently, so again, people are still buying tickets, and people are going to buy tickets whether she's playing or not because they want to see her play. There's been sponsorship brands that have come into the WNBA like Nike, AT&T. Merchandise, I'm sure, has skyrocketed with Clark's sold-out jerseys, which has further boosted that revenue stream. As I run this company, and where I want everybody to understand the position I'm in, I understand business. And business needs to be there to be able to pay more and everything else like that. If you're paying your employees more money than what you're making in, it's a bad business you're going to close. And I'm not saying the WNBA is going to go anywhere, because I don't think it is. I think there's going to be a significant growth that it's going to become profitable within the next 5 years. And that's being generous. I think it's probably going to be sooner than that. The NBA still has subsidized the WNBA a little bit. I think providing $15 million annually to cover operating costs and stuff like that. I'm assuming paying the WNBA like commissioners and everything else like that, or the front office of the WNBA. So what are they spending money on is the question then. What is the WNBA spending money on for the 12 teams? So the operating costs for these teams involves paying your players, obviously. The salary cap was $1.46 million, it says, in 2024. But you have player salaries, travel, marketing, the facilities, running the arenas that they play in, and administrative overhead. All those things you need to have. There's nothing really you can cut out of that. So the overall spending by the WNBA for players alone is a little over $17.5 million. By comparison, the NBA spends, or they had a cap of $136 million in 2024. The estimated annual cost for travel, because this used to be the contentious part 2 of the CBA for the WNBA, was how they traveled. They were relying on commercial flights up until recently when they upgraded to charter flights, which estimates at around $25 million a year to travel, or to have all these teams travel to the different arenas, different cities, everything else like that, staying, all that stuff. They now have dedicated training centers, which raises costs. The New York Liberty planned an $80 million complex just for the Liberty, which will open in 2027. So there's a bunch of money going into those things as well. And the league should invest in these player amenities, the travel, the infrastructure, which will outpace revenue gains to start off with. They can see it. Everybody can see it. It's going to explode, as I just mentioned. The interesting thing here is, if the NBA didn't subsidize the WNBA, would they survive? And with a $200 million revenue stream, and you're still at a $50 million loss, that's 25% deficit. It's all easy math. The league's $75 million capital rise in 2022 and potential media rights windfall gives it a path for self-sufficiency. The most important thing that's going to come at the end of this season is what kind of media rights deal they get from who. Is it going to be ESPN? Is it going to be Netflix? Is it going to be Amazon? Is it going to be... There's a whole bunch of different options out there. They're going to be able to compete against each other. So the WNBA is going to really do well, at least in what the projections show, for media rights. And that's going to be the big one. Because if you're going from 60 million to 200, 250 million, you've covered your losses there. Whatever your losses are, you're covered in that. Now, all that means is now salaries are going to go up again. Salaries are the one thing that haven't really gone up comparative to, because you have to keep your costs in line somewhere. And unfortunately, the players were the ones that were hurting on this. Hence the t-shirts, hence all that different stuff. I'm sure they've made all the statement. Again, they're well within their right to make this statement. But the problem still is your league that you play in is not a profitable entity. Because if they don't get that deal that they're looking for, and they're still at a $50 million loss a year, there's going to be drastic cuts somewhere, or even closure. That's the worst case scenario. Again, I don't think that's ever going to become the case, because I believe this is going to explode. The players' salaries, as of 2025, the highest paid player in the WNBA is the Las Vegas Aces, Jackie Young, who makes $252,000 a year. It's a little bit over that. I rounded. Sue me. Making a historic milestone for this league. That is the highest salary that has been out there. Jackie Young was the number 1 overall pick in 2019 out of Notre Dame. She averages over 16 points a game. So again, very good player. Obviously, that salary is nothing compared to Stephen Curry, who makes over $55 million a year. I realize it's not even in the same ballpark, but again, there has to be something that gives way because you're not profitable. The NBA is still profitable, will always be profitable unless drastic things happen. And the other argument that these women are making is that the league's financial model, players receive about 9% of the revenue, which was dated back in 2022, I believe, down from 11% in 2019. So again, I get where they're angry about this stuff. The NBA, which has all this convoluted CBA and salary cap stuff with the first apron, the luxury tax, the second apron, all that stuff. The WNBA operates on a hard cap. I mean, you cannot go over this amount. And that's based upon the league revenue, which what I've said over and over again is not profitable. During the last bit of negotiations, the salary cap was raised. It was under $1 million in 2019 to $1.3 million in 2020. Now we're at 1.4, a little over 1.4. And that looks to increase. Once this media deal gets done, if it's in the range that they're saying it's going to be in, the salaries are going to go up too. I'm all for everything. I'm all for the equality. I'm all for the salaries. I'm all for all that stuff. So don't come at me and say that I hate women. I don't want to. No, that's not the case. What I am I'm pro good business. I've always looked at things from a business perspective. Obviously, I own my own business. I've obviously worked for mom and pop places growing up and understand that there's got to be profit. If you continuously lose, you're going to eventually not be a business. Now, they've been lucky because of the NBA helping subsidize some of this stuff. They've been lucky where they could keep some other expenses down and really work towards. And again, they've been doing this for 28 years. So they saw the light at the end of the tunnel almost 3 decades ago. And now it seems like it's probably going to turn that corner with this new media rights deal. We saw that the New York Liberty were sold for, well, hold on, before I say sold for, the New York Liberty owners sold shares in the team at a $450 million valuation, meaning they didn't sell all of the team. They didn't sell it for $450 million. It was sold based upon the 100% of the shares would value $450 million. So a little different. But that is an unprecedented number for a women's pro sports franchise. So again, it's there. It's all there. The women's football league that Marina participates in has been growing, has some work to do, obviously, but it's growing still. WNBA is probably going to grow as well. There are currently 15 teams in the WNBA, and 3 more are coming in Cleveland, Detroit, and Philadelphia. The business will get there. Until that point, things have to stay the status quo. It's just the way it has to go, or else the league is going to fold. Being able to keep a business in line at a loss for nearly 30 years is, again, they looked super long term, or they looked that everything was going to grow and everything else like that. And again, they saw all that stuff, have continued to keep everything at least in line to the point of where they can survive. But let's not get too ahead of ourselves right now. The negotiation for the media rights is going to be the big deal at the end of this season. There's planned expansion, there's planned everything else, so it shows that there is health in this organization as a whole, but there needs to be a big media deal at the end of this year to make it self-sufficient. Once it becomes self-sufficient, if they can continue that growth, even if it's a little bit at a time, the league will be just fine. Once you get into that self-sustainability, then you're in good shape. I got a lot of this information from an MSN story written by Ryan Matuku about 3 months ago or so. I'll probably put that link in the description so that way you can all go read it as well. So doing a little bit of research within the WNBA and everything else like that. I mean, it's there. It's there for the taking. They need to find that media deal. They need to be able to then keep everything, because once that media deal comes, all salary people are going to push for bigger salaries and everything else. So they got to keep a status quo for a little while. Once it becomes self-sufficient, like I said, then they're talking. The one problem they're going to have, and that's Angel Reese has spoken up and said, we ain't bluffing, we'll sit out on CBA negotiations and higher pay demands. You don't have that leg to stand on quite yet. You're going to use it because that's what you can do. But saying that now was probably not the right time. Again, being unified and wearing the t-shirts and everything else like that all made sense. It puts it at the forefront. It puts everything else like that. But when you're part of an organization, again, that is not profitable and is losing $50 million a year. Now, prior to last year, it was around 10. So they've spent a lot of money to upgrade a lot of different things for the athletes, which is great. But if you're at $50 million a year that you're losing, and that's what it's going to continue to be, then you're not going to have a leg to stand on anyway. So telling people that you're going to sit out, listen, it's all very murky. It's tied into the NBA still. It's everything else like that. A lot of it's just very murky. But if the final number is you're losing $50 million, it's tough. It's tough to try to say, hey, we'll sit out. All of this, too, from an owner standpoint, is a negotiating tactic. Trust me, I see that side, too. That side is if they admit how much they're making, people are going to come after them for more money. And they don't, obviously, as owners and everything else like that, you want to make as much money as possible. That's to say, if you're an owner and say, I don't want to make money on this, is a lie. They are human beings that have made money. They want to continue to make money, and they're owners of franchises and everything else. The owners know this will be the first time in history that the players have the leverage to ask for more money, and they're going to opt out of the CBA or whatever they're going to do. I don't want to sit here and act like I know everything that's going to happen, but it is pretty typical that when they have that little bit of leverage, they're going to use it to make themselves more money. And they've done fine. And by fine, I mean they've been able to, again, keep a league around losing money for 30 years. So now that they have this little bit, this is all what it is. It's all about who has leverage over who and whatnot. It normally is the owners have the leverage over the players. Hey, you don't want to do this? Cool, I don't have to pay you. Let's not get ahead of ourselves and start making these sit out comments. It's got to be one of you gotta stay unified, but not do something stupid. The league is exploding. They're getting ticket sales. They're getting memorabilia sales. They're going to get a media deal that makes sense and is actually going to be probably 4 to 5 times more than what they have right now. Yes, you're going to have the leverage. Don't do something stupid to ruin it now, because negative stuff will come back to bite you in the ass. There will continue to be expansion. There will continue to be all that stuff. You got to go into this and, again, use the leverage that you have, which you showed that you're unified. All of the players showed that. Great step there. This was a lot longer of a conversation than I thought it was going to be. So we'll move on to the main thing that I had for today, which was, unfortunately, another New England area news story that's probably not shared in a great light. A kind of a spat that's still happening between Bill Belichick and Robert Kraft. Now, for those of you who don't know, Robert Kraft is the owner of the New England Patriots. And on a taping of Julian Edelman and Rob Gronkowski's Dudes on Dudes podcast, Patriots owner Robert Kraft told the two former players that the best move that he made since becoming the owner in 1994 was trading a first-round draft pick for Bill Belichick, who at the time was being named the New York Jets head coach. He told his two former players that this was the one that got questioned the most because he was giving up a first-round draft pick for a coach who had won little over 40% of his games. And for those of you who don't remember, Bill Belichick was the head coach of the Cleveland Browns at one point. And I believe they beat the Patriots in the playoffs while he was the head coach as well. He said that bringing Bill Belichick to the Patriots in 1999 was a big risk, and I got hammered in the Boston media, but he was with us for 24 years, and we did okay. And I put the quotation marks around okay because they did better than okay, obviously. Belichick has brought Belichick and the Patriots brought the most dominant era of modern-day football the NFL has ever seen, with the way that the Patriots played and the way that the success that came and everything else like it. So okay was very much an understatement. The separation between Belichick and the Patriots was said in the media was mutual. Let's just put it that way. And both Belichick and the organization, Kraft, later revealed on a radio show that it was a firing and all this different stuff that has happened. Obviously, Belichick has this whole media circus around him right now, and I'm not getting into that for this segment of the show anyway. But Bill Belichick has taken exception to the big risk, quote unquote, that Kraft had mentioned. I mean, the owner isn't wrong. Kraft isn't wrong. Trading a first-round pick for a coach with a losing record, I believe he was 36-44, was far from a safe move for the New England Patriots. Belichick omitted Kraft from his book, which is another, again, part of this feud, if you will. The Apple TV documentary, which I stopped watching halfway through because I thought it was poorly put together. Whether that was by Apple or whether it was done at the Patriots, request or whatever, I don't know. I didn't enjoy it. I thought it made Belichick look poor. And again, I don't think that's something that the Patriots did. I'd like to think not. Belichick obviously has gone and is in the college ranks coaching for the University of North Carolina, which he'll make his debut in the fall. There's been a lot of back and forth with this whole relationship since Belichick has moved on, whether mutually fired, whatever the actual thing that happened behind closed doors is this. The thing I don't want as a Patriots fan is I don't want a legacy ruined because the coach and the owner are going to go back and forth in the media over stupid shit. This was an era that I never thought I would see because the Patriots were so bad before Belichick got here. And they went to a couple of Super Bowls. They obviously didn't win. They had Drew Bledsoe, who, obviously was replaced by Tom Brady and all this great stuff. For those of you who look at New England and Boston and say they've been so lucky with all these championships and everything else like that, each team has gone through their growing pains. The Patriots were 1-15 before Drew Bledsoe came in and they started to go up a little bit. They obviously weren't a playoff team before Belichick got here. It was Pete Carroll that was here before him. The Red Sox obviously hadn't won a World Series in 86 years. The Bruins are the Bruins. So they've had their ups and downs just like anything else. They had a long time between cups as well. This area understands the Patriots were 50% Bill Belichick, 50% Tom Brady. There was nobody. You needed the two of them to have the success that you had. Obviously, there were other players in there. They drafted pretty well for a little while. They had players that were willing to play out of position. Troy Brown, Julian Edelman. They were able to develop players. They didn't have to throw in right away. They had veterans that could lead and were great leaders. Teddy Bruschi comes to mind. Vince Wilfork, Richard Seymour. All those guys come to mind on a great defense. And they had great schemes, and they were able to make adjustments and everything else. Tom Brady doesn't make adjustments if the coach isn't telling him to make adjustments. The defense doesn't make adjustments unless the coaching staff comes up with it. They prepare people. They did all those things. The players weren't doing all of that. They needed coaches to help with all those things. Let's not make this shitty. Let's not make the era and all the success that you had into a spat back and forth that's just ruining a legacy. That's what this is. Since the split, there's been rumors that Kraft reportedly called his Falcons counterpart Arthur Blank to advise him against hiring Belichick. The Falcons ended up bringing in Raheem Morris as the head coach. Belichick took a little sabbatical, I guess you could call it, and then took the North Carolina job. The two men cross paths again at Tom Brady's Netflix roast, which is funny if you haven't seen it. But tensions were seemingly at an all-time high. It didn't seem, players were telling people that they were very cold towards each other. And then the Dynasty came out on Apple TV again If you've watched it, fine. If you haven't seen it yet, probably not worth your time. But that's just me. None of this seems like it's going to end. At least not in the near future, not if anything else. I mean, I think eventually you're going to probably have some reconciliation from, whether it's Jonathan Kraft, whether it's Robert, whether it's Bill, whatever. I mean, Bill's 73 years old at this point. Robert Kraft is 84, 85, somewhere in that range. It's who knows how stubborn each one of them is going to be at this point. The Patriots aren't the Patriots of the last 25 years without Bill Belichick, Robert Kraft, Tom Brady, and then there's a whole other people that have either lesser roles or whatever you want to say. The Patriots aren't the Patriots without the three main players. And they all had to be there. They all had to be willing to. Brady had to take less money at some points. Kraft had to be able to spend money. Belichick had to be able to adjust to different things and everything else. I mean, it was just something that happened. It was a great time for the Patriots and the New England sports. It was a dynasty in which we probably will not see again. And I'm not putting the Chiefs there. I'm not putting any other team in that category quite yet. I think that Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs have been excellent. They've been great Super Bowl champions. I'm glad Kansas City has had the success that it's had, but I don't think they're in the same realm as the Patriots. Not yet. The NFL also had a weird situation with holdouts from the NFL draft. A ton of second-round picks, all but two, basically held out up until probably the beginning of the week. It seems as if second-round picks are starting to want more guarantees in contracts and everything else. There's still one first-round draft pick that is holding out. Shamar Stewart for the Cincinnati Bengals has not signed. If he's not signed by August 5th, he can go back to college. Texas A&M has already said Stewart has no intentions of returning to college to play football for the Aggies, so he'd have to transfer someplace. But he was brought in because they didn't know what was going to go on with Trey Hendrickson, who is still unsigned for the Bengals as well. They play the same position. So it was, well, if we don't have Hendrickson, we drafted Stewart. He'll fill in. Well, now he won't fill in. And it's the contract dispute over language. They were it was something to do with potentially voiding the contract. And I think the Bengals just need to change that. And I think they'll do it last minute. They're going to try to make sure that he doesn't hold out. Because now that Texas A&M has said that there's no interest there, or that Stewart has no interest there, I mean, he's kind of in the middle of two different potential situations. I think the deal will get done eventually for him. But the second rounders all seem to hold out except for the top two picks of the second round they signed. TreVeyon Henderson for the Patriots just signed a fully guaranteed deal. So again, second round picks, it seems as if they're going out and getting more guarantees now by holding out a little bit longer. It was a domino effect. Once one kind of signed, we've seen probably about a half dozen to 10 sign over the last few days. So I think all those will get done as well. Still trying to put together the last finishing touches to the Buffalo Bills team preview, which should be out in the next couple of days. Again, that one will be on video. So again, the show kind of evolving a little bit, got kind of backed up a little bit with some of the show stuff, but so far feel like we're in pretty good shape. Again, a couple more days to start team previews. And then from there, who knows? Who knows what will come? But for right now, we'll have this one out. And then no matter where you are, whether it's the morning, whether it's the afternoon, whether it's at night, have a good one. And we will see you on the next episode.